For almost a decade, the Nigerian army have given their all to ensure that our dear country is not overrun by Boko Haram insurgents. Some have in the process paid the ultimate price, while many will forever live with indelible scars occasioned by their determination to protect the country, no matter the hurdle. Despite these, they have remained resolute and undaunted, and today, all territories the insurgents once took control of have been recaptured and normalcy restored. And now, for the first time in a long time, the end of Boko Haram is foreseeable. Therefore, the wisest thing for the remaining insurgents to do is to surrender today or face total destruction from the army. Remember, the Nigerian army will stop at nothing to ensure that total peace is restored in all parts of the country. So, be wise and embrace peace today or get ready to be ruthlessly dealt with. This message is brought to you by the Coalition on Conflict Resolution and Human Rights in Nigeria.
Good evening and welcome to another super exciting time on Matter Africa on Television Nigerian. Now, Matter Africa is a program designed for all the women out there thinking that they are alone. Matter Africa talks about the struggle and, of course, the quest for the African woman to survive despite all the challenges that comes in front of her. My name is Cynthia Agbo. You're getting to see a different face, don't worry. Next week, you'll definitely get to see Blessing Akbera. Now, today we're talking about the low rape conviction in Africa. Why is this? We have several cases of rape in Africa, in Nigeria, but how many of these rape cases are actually convicted? How many of them actually followed to the end? And to talk about this with me, I have a person of Hawa Mustafa. She is a research developer, Nigeria Labour Congress. Good evening, ma.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I know that apart from you being a development researcher for the Nigeria Labour Congress, you definitely have other things that you do. Let's get to know about that.
I think primarily I'm a social, say a social activist. I started as a gender women as an advocate of women's rights. And then I was also into human rights, which I'm still into. So I think generally, and that's why broadly I see myself as practicing development or working in the area of development. So specifically climate change, gender issues and women's issues, human rights broadly speaking. These are areas that I focus on.
Okay. Now, when you mentioned human rights, I decided to, I was calm and I was super excited because we are talking about the low rape conviction, and this falls under things that affect humans, mostly women. And of course, Matter Africa is going to talk about women. And so now my first question would be, why do we have low rape conviction? And for someone who doesn't even know what rape is, do us an honor by telling us what rape is.
Well, rape as socially defined is a situation where a person forces himself sexually on another. And oftentimes the very common and traditional way in which we understand rape is the man against the woman, when the man forcefully, penetrates himself into the woman without the woman's consent.
Okay.
Without the woman's consent is very key. The two key words are that there is a force by the man. This force could be physical. This force could be psychological. This force could be emotional. And then the other part of it is without the consent of the victim. In this case, oftentimes the woman.
Okay, so and now let's move. Having established what rape is, consent and forceful penetration. Now let us now talk about why is it that there's low rape conviction of in Africa and in Nigeria. Now I was reading over statistics and it says that only 18 cases of rape have actually been convicted so far in Nigeria. We are aware that there are so many cases of rape that comes up every single day.
The starting point is that because of what rape is associated with, rape is associated with sex.
Sure.
And sex ordinarily is seen as a taboo word. Sex ordinarily is seen as something, is seen as a hush word, something you don't publicize, something you don't bring out yourself to say, well, I've just had it, or I've just been part of this situation. And so a lot of taboo is associated with a lot of issues of taboo. And that is a similar way in which, the issue of HIV or AIDS persons are seen, because oftentimes the way the disease, I say, the way the disease is acquired is seen as through sex. And sex, everything sex, even the way we are mentioning it now, some people's body will cringe and like, what is this? So I basically, I think it is about that. So people do, because of what is associated with sex, and sex is seen as a taboo, and then people also do feel that any woman or anybody who says you have been involved in such a situation forcefully, there is a stigma attached to you, and once that people want to keep away from that stigma, we have not reached a situation in a country where it's very difficult to find a situation where a female who has been raped, comfortably comes out to say, here I am, I was raped. Even if the situation, the circumstance was such a criminal circumstance, assuming, for instance, you were robbed, maybe some kidnappers or some robbers attacked you and raped you in that process. There's a criminal situation, yet people do not want to come out and say, because of the stigma that is attached to it, and also because of the taboo that is also attached to it, and you may be seen as you are stigmatized generally, and that stigma creates a lot of emotional and psychological negativity in that person, so you want to keep away from it. And so the starting point is that people do not readily come out, rape victims do not readily come out to first of all say that, agree that they have been raped, and then report the cases. Very few of the cases of rape are in the first instance even reported.
Okay.
And that there are even some cases where people do not even agree that it is a situation of rape. So you don't even accept it, you just live with it. For instance, a man can rape his wife.
Okay.
By the definition of rape, force and consent. So a husband can force himself on his wife without her consent. That is an established rape by the definition of rape.
But ma, sorry to cut you short, but in the issue of the man and the wife, some people have actually argued, it was a cause of discourse. Some people have argued that you cannot call the situation between the man and the wife as rape, because once a man has paid a woman's bride price, dowry, he automatically owns everything about the woman, including her body.
Do we accept the definition of rape? We started with the definition, don't forget.
Yes.
We said there is a force, we agree. There is an issue of consent. And we agreed with these two words. These are the key things. So, in any situation where there is a force and there is a lack of consent, rape is established. There is a low reportage, and the reason for low reportage also is related to the reason for low conviction. This is a country where, by the African tradition, generally it's not just in Nigeria, where a woman, you dare to go and report a case of rape. And you find the policeman asking you, what were you wearing, for instance?
Okay, that brings me to my next question. Should a woman be judged by what she's putting on to necessitate rape?
It's not so much about what she's putting on. And like I said, it is not so much about what she's putting on. Because we also have to be very careful about dressing. Because so that you don't encourage a situation where somebody says, okay, I have the freedom to dress so I can wear my pants and bra and walk on the streets. So we have to be very careful. There is something you call decency, although it is also relative. But even in common sense, you know what is decent. Come down to Nigeria, you know that particularly, there has been this thing about what is decent dressing, especially in our campuses. There has been all kinds of adverts, and these are some areas where rape cases are also very, 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 very rampant. So I think there's a limit to how you define what a woman's dressing should be, because it is also connected to culture. I have my culture that I feel comfortable with, that also defines how I should dress, basically, or at least defines the minimum of what I should dress. So I think, and then for every kind of culture, for every kind of situation, I think there's a minimum, and then if we work within that minimum, I think it is sufficient. And that dressing should also not be a woman's, thing always. The woman should dress properly. What about the man? The man also should have a basic sense of dressing, something that, universally or culturally accepted as decent, so to say. And then so that is it about the dressing. But then linking the dressing to the issue of rape. I think the issue of rape sometimes, for me, is something that has to do with the mindset. It's something that has to do sometimes with I think probably the brain, of sometimes I think that sometimes it's a sick mind that would want to rape. So it hasn't got anything to do with dressing. We have seen people that are being raped even in churches and in mosques. We have seen people that are raped within their houses. We have seen issues where fathers rape their daughters. A driver is sent to go odd settings. A driver is sent to go and drop a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old in the school, and he parks by the corner to rape her. These are the sort of things we hear about.
From your explanation, it's not totally the woman's fault, because given the case of 2-year-old, 4-year-old family, a father and daughter, it's now what can be done to salvage this particular situation? Is it that the man needs a cleansing of the mind? And in that, if cleansing of the mind is what is needed, how do we achieve this?
It's not just to bring the awareness that rape issues are there in the society. It's also to educate the women to understand that, look, it is not your fault that you have been raped, because most of the victims of rape are women anyway. So when I talk about women, I'm saying that from that perspective, because there are also some arguments that people say that it's not only men, there are also men. That have been raped. But that's a very insignificant, number to what is very common. The women need to be very, very much educated. There has to be a campaign to say that, look, rape victims should stop the silence. They need to come out. There's a need for a support group that helps them when they come out, that, and then the society at large also needs to be educated to understand that you must not put a stigma on the rape victim, because she is a victim, and a victim is already, battling with enough psychological, trauma. So you don't add more to that victim's already trauma, and even the pains, and maybe sometimes the disease, or maybe even unwanted pregnancy coming out from that situation that the person might be forced to carry. Those, there are options. But then for all of this, it's a lot of education. Just the way we handle the case of HIV/AIDS. Initially there was a lot of stigma. Some of the victims were not even coming out. Some of the affected persons were not coming out. They didn't want to, show. And now what we have is people are coming out. People are saying, this is what I have. People are even saying, this is how I acquired it, because sometimes, even if it is through sex, it's something that you did it as a mature person, with consent, and then some mistakes happened, and then here you are. So that should not be a death sentence for me.
We are talking about women here, and girls, they are the major people suffering of the issue of rape. And whether there's a conviction or not, everything still boils down to the woman. Now, this is the technical part. Don't you think that as part of the reason why a lot of families or women try to hush it when these things happen. The little thing is because of the shame that comes from the women folk. Because I have seen situations whereby it is the women themselves, like our fellow women, that are the ones who even sing the story of, oh, that girl was raped the more. They are the ones who actually spread the gist, like it's called, the gist, that, oh, that girl was raped, that woman's daughter was raped. Now, don't you think that we women, we are the one even who make these victims not being able to come out to speak?
The issue of rape also has a kind of vicious circle. The person that has been raped, the family of the person, within the family there is a gender issue. How does the man react to it? How does the woman react to it? The friends, the the workplace, the public space, the private space, and everything surrounding that victim. It's all closes. It all holds up. How do you go to the hospital? Even the medical situation. What do you go to say when you go to the hospital? There is no privacy. First of all, I meet a doctor. What is the reason I have been raped? A nurse has to be affected, has to be involved. And you know the way
the women talk. They pass
exactly.
the story.
So it is not so much about the woman's faults as in blame the woman for so-called pulling the woman down. It is also, for me, a thing that we have to sympathize with the woman who also does not sufficiently understands that it is her duty to protect her sister, her fellow woman. I think rather than condemn such a woman, I would rather sympathize with such a woman for lack of sufficient consciousness to understand that, look, that rape victim is indirectly you. Because she has been abused because she's a woman, is indirectly saying that you as a woman, you can also, in fact, you have been abused, your gender has been abused. It has been, you've been told that, look, indirectly that this is what should happen to you, or it happens to you, so what? You are a woman, you are a sex object, whether you give consent or not, it is for me when I need it to do it, to take it and give the way I want it, where I want it, however I want it. So, you should not see it as a pride. If anywhere any female is being abused sexually, every other woman should see it as an insult to her own womanhood. And until we are able to see it as such, I don't think, I would rather not so much blame the woman, because she is also a product of that society. You know, that patriarchal society that says, woman, this is whom you are, this is how you should comport yourself. And if there's any woman who violates, you know, this societal definition of how the woman should comport herself, then she's not one of us. But there are also, you forget that there are also other circumstances within that society. There are also other events. There are other situations that also, you know, work against the woman. And we are all within the same class. So I think that's why I say it goes back to campaign and education. We need to sufficiently educate ourselves to be sisters, you know, to one another. We also need to sufficiently educate the men, you know, to also understand that, I mean, why do you want to rape? Why? And then why do you, if you have any, if you are affected, if you have any victim is related to you, why do you want to keep the person away? You know, this is the time for you to pull the person close. This is the time for you to make the person to understand that, look, you have people, we are with you. It was not your fault. In fact, if there's anybody that needs to be ashamed, if there's anybody that needs to be stigmatized, if there's anybody that needs to be ostracized by the society, it is that person. It is the man who perpetrated the act. But for you coming out, in fact, you should be seen as a heroine, because you refused it, you used the much power you could, but because physically or otherwise he happens to be stronger than you and he got his way, you did not give it to him, you should be seen as a heroine. And then you should be given, you should be given a special place. Not to say that we want to celebrate rape now. I want to be careful about that. Not that we want to celebrate rape, no. But that it has happened to you. You have fought against it. And this person felt that he is a winner by getting through what belongs to you, not to him. You should not be abused. Rather than being abused, you should be given a special place that helps you to get back your sense of worth, that helps you to get back your sense of esteem, your self-esteem. For me, that's where I'm going to. That you should be treated in such a way that you are able to get back your self-esteem. Because rape throws your self-esteem to the rubbish can if you are not properly handled.
Okay, my final question, not really a question right now. What would be your last word to the government, to all the African society at large, to the woman out there who might have been raped, or might have a sister or a cousin or a friend that have gone through this particular thing called rape, and perhaps there was no justice for her, there was no conviction for the rapist. Now, what would be your advice?
I think the case of conviction is not strong enough, and the punishment that is also being meted out is not strong enough. I mean, somebody destroys a young girl for life. You can't give back what you have taken from her for life. And then you are convicted for 3 years, you are convicted for 6 months, you are convicted for 5 years. In fact, that person does not deserve to come back to that society. He should be kept away into the gallows for a longer time. And that's kind of, if there is a stiffer punishment, if there is a stiffer penalty, it should act as a deterrent to others. But a lot of rape victims unfortunately get away with what they're doing. And so that is it for the government. We need to strengthen the rules, the penalty. We need to be stiffer with the punishment. And the police or the law enforcement agents need to also need to be properly trained on issues of rape, on understanding the victim, of rape, and then also making it a stronger, responsibility of theirs to go after rape victims. To go after the perpetrators of rape, because oftentimes they are let go. So that is it for the government. Punishment has to be stiffer. Penalty must be conviction must be seen to act as a deterrent to others. Secondly, and then for the women, for my sisters, I think for anybody who has been raped, it's not your fault. You didn't take yourself there. Nobody takes himself to be punished. It's not the end of the world. Look out for sisters. Look out for communities or groups within your community that you can walk up to, that can help you through your traumatic experience. And I think in every society around Africa, they may not be enough, but you still find them. There are many women's groups, all around the place that can give you that sisterhood support. And for the broad society, I think we need to strengthen sisterhood support in every community. Sometimes even through the telephone. Some people may not want to necessarily bring themselves out, but you should be able to have a number where you can call. And at least through that number, government should have a number like that, through which you can call and at least talk to somebody, talk to the medical personnel, talk to the clinical psychologist, talk to maybe a pastor, talk to an imam, talk to, doctors, talk to people that are probably not necessarily within your society. They are probably not seeing you, but will be able to help you, through the times that you are going through. And don't see it as a death penalty. You are a strong woman. You went through hardship. You came out of it. And when you come out of it as a stronger person. Tell your story. Let your voices be heard so that you can also make others aware. People should stop hiding. Even if it is a child that has been involved, you may want to keep the identity of the child away, but the mothers or the fathers of that child, of that minor, should be able to come out and say, this is what happens to me, and join a movement or a group, of people who fight, who campaign against rape, who campaign for stiffer penalty or punishment for perpetrators. And I think if we do this, maybe we'll help better. And then there are also people who also, the final thing is also that people who have a tendency for rape, like I said earlier, they also have some psychological issues. There should also be an avenue for them to be able to vent out, you know. And then our society is such that, look, there is so much poverty, there is so much hopelessness, there is so much depression, so much frustration. And people just want to find one way or the other to vent that frustration, even through criminal acts. You know, we should also be able to create avenue or support facilities even for those who are going through some rough moments in their lives before they go to commit certain acts. So when you are feeling this is what you are going through, you should be able to pick a number, you know, and call a number and say, this is the way I'm feeling right now. How can you help me?
I want to say a very big thank you, Hawa Mustafa, for having us here and discussing very in-depth on the low conviction of rape cases in Africa, also in Nigeria. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, this is the much we can take on Matter Africa. I know that you have definitely enjoyed every single bit of it, and also a time for you to know that in everything that you're going through, you are not alone. There is definitely somebody out there who has been through the same situation as yourself, and if that person can survive, I know that you also can survive. Do not forget to always share your experiences. Do not forget to talk to someone. Don't stay quiet as a woman, because you are stronger than anything you can ever imagine. Keep it there with us next week on Matter Africa. My name is Cynthia Agbod. You have yourself a wonderful evening.
Nigerians have tested political parties, religion and age. It is time to get a bridge builder to heal the wounds. Hassan Dan Kwambo. Under your watch as Executive Governor of Gombe State, you have been able to manage the state's resources in view of the numerous projects so far completed and the low statutory federal allocations accruable to the state. With your landmark achievements in healthcare, youth employment, women empowerment, road infrastructure, pipe-borne water, security, education and agricultural development, we are sure of a better Nigeria. 2019 is not about power or change, but rather it is about Dan Kwambo to replicate his humility and servant leadership. Dan Kwambo, Nigeria. Nigeria, Dan Kwambo.